What's up, everybody? Jordan Stewart here from Vover. Thanks so much for tapping into the Vover original show. Just a reminder that if you want to drop your opinions about the episode or respond to the host and guests with your voice, go and download the Vover app wherever you get your apps. Vover, voice over everything. Enjoyed the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Vover's Pop Culture Corner. I am your host, Jeremy Loss, coming to you live from the Multiverse, and I am joined by a variant of my co-host, Ben Cruz. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm good. Who are you? What's your name?
I am he who remains.
Yeah, oh, that's right. That's right. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to talk about this. This was an incredible piece of television.
I'm just going to go out and say it. This was the best episode of television, MCU television that has happened in this Disney Plus era.
Yeah.
This is better than it was Agatha all along. This was an incredible piece of television. And you know what's crazy for finale, where we're coming to a crescendo of things and we're learning about where things stand in the multiverse and what's happening and where this is going to go. There really wasn't a ton of action. This was a lot of talking, heavy exposition, just three actors sitting in a room chewing up fucking screen time, and I loved every second of it. It was incredible.
It felt like I was sitting in on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because it was just a conversation between three people. And for the majority of it, what was it, like 85% of the episode was just the three of them talking, the two Lokis and Kang. So it was some of the most engaging and the most roped in I've been on any piece of television for a while. Like I literally stopped what I was doing. Usually, I'll check the phone on occasion, right? That's just kind of part of how we consume content now. I felt like I was a little kid again, just glued to the television like I haven't been in a very, very long time.
Yeah, this was incredibly engaging. And I think a lot of it goes to how Jonathan Majors played that character.
Dude,
he was
holy shit,
captivating, just incredible. And I know that he is, so it's well known that he was cast to play Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We'll just get into Kang because that's the big takeaway is Kang the Conqueror. He is the big bad, or what we assume to be the big bad of the MCU multiverse. This version of Kang is different. It's a mixture of two different characters that we get in the comics. So there's He Who Remains, which is what he called himself in the show. Mm-hmm. And then there's a Mortis, who is a future version of them. They both deal with time. And so they're both variants of Kang. And Kang in the comics is Nathaniel Richards. His real name is Nathaniel Richards. Is in the 31st century or 30th century. There's a lot more lore that goes into it that we're not going to get into. But long story short, he is a direct descendant of Reed Richards. So not only is Kang going to be this big bad, but he's also going to have a direct tie-in to the Fantastic Four, which is just
oh my god,
exciting and crazy beyond belief. And it's great that now we have officially entered this new era of the MCU. The multiverse is here, and I am so excited for it, but also a little confused and a little wary as to how this is going to take place and how they're going to be able to manipulate and manage all of these things going on. What was your initial kind of thought when you saw not only Kang, but the multiverse split?
I mean, just seeing the visual of it was a little overwhelming, right? Because you're like, oh shit, this kind of opens up so many possibilities where literally we were kind of just living on this one timeline, right? Where it was just kind of a little easier to follow. And so I'm now rewatching this with my wife. And so we just finished episode 2 together after I saw episode 6. And she doesn't know what's going on, but she asked me to explain the timeline situation, right? Or like the multiverse. I used pictures. Like I drew a picture. It was it's one of the more pathetic pictures I've ever drawn, but I'm also not a good drawer. But as I was looking at it and I was explaining it to her and thinking about episode 6, that's what I walked away with from that whole experience. Was like, it's kind of overwhelming because when you're like, well, what's going to happen? I mean, that is a loaded question now. Like it's not just a simple question as it probably used to be, right? Like, hey, what's next after Endgame? You could probably map some stuff out, right? Because again, it's a very linear timeline. But now, oh boy, everything is possible. Also, just I still can't get over Jonathan Majors' performance. Like I'm still taken aback and just wowed by it, just thinking about it. And that's I mean, I'm excited to get to that episode, in this rewatch with my wife, because again, it was just so enthralling. Like, it's been a while since I've seen a performance like that on television or in movies, right? It was just so freaking good.
Yeah, I mean, he is kind of that up and coming star. And when they announced this casting, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I was not anticipating him to really draw me into the level that he did and the way he played this character. He is going to be a very busy man in the next few years as they continue to do more projects. So there's a couple possibilities as to what's going to happen going forward. Obviously, with the variants of Kang now coming, Jonathan Majors is either going to be in a shit ton of projects, or they're going to do something where they cast different versions of Kang played by different actors, but they're all essentially variants of Kang. Like Iron Lad, for example, is a variant of Kang, but he's a younger kind of Iron Man. So I don't anticipate Jonathan Majors playing that, but like, it's going to be interesting to see how they plan this out. Where does Kang come involved? Like, where do these variants become more involved? Obviously, I think they're going to be in Multiverse of Madness. I think they may be a part of No Way Home. How do they also blend in the more grounded stories of like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like Captain America and Hawkeye and Black Widow? Like, those are all really grounded in reality. Those are all spy kind of films where we're not talking about space and time travel. How do they mix those characters in so that they can be a part of this, essentially what is going to be the next big event film? So that's going to be interesting to see how they do that. There's also been like rumors that the next big event will be something along the lines of Secret Wars, which has ties to Kang and Fantastic Four and all that. So there's a lot to be unpacked. And seeing that multiverse split, my initial thought was like, oh yeah, we're definitely getting Tobey and Andrew Garfield in the next Spider-Man film. That's 100% happening. Like, that was my initial jump to. I was like, this is it. And I think this also opens up the possibility where we get other Fox characters into the MCU, whether it's Deadpool, who's already, like, it's confirmed that he's coming, but like, we may get some X-Men characters that we didn't anticipate coming into the MCU. So the possibilities here, like you said, are endless. It is kind of the next evolution of the MCU and the next evolution of their storytelling. This is something that is going to take a lot of planning. I hope to God, and knowing that Kevin Feige is in charge of this, they have a pretty good sense as to where this is going and how this is going to lay out. But I hope to God they have that plan, because the last thing I want this to do is set up this really grand event and it just sputters out because there was no really clear direction, like similar to what happened to Star Wars. Like, the last group of Star Wars films, they didn't have a direction. They didn't have a plan for how things were going to go. And it ended up being a shit show. So I'm hopeful that they'll be able to plot out where this is going 5-10 years in advance, so that they have a good sense. Okay, when they bring in a writer, this is the direction that they need to go to reach this end game. You know what I mean? Right.
And I think just from a financial standpoint, right, they've set this up to go on forever, which is obviously super brilliant, right? There's literally no end in sight for this, because we got to the end of time and then they just made more branches of time. So yeah, I guess my question I have for you is there a fear at all, any Marvel fatigue down the line? Because there's just so many possibilities. And again, I think what drew us to the first 4 phases of the Marvel universe, or cinematically anyway, was that, we were going to get to the end with Thanos, right? At some point. And now I guess are we going to get some big battle with Kang, or some sort of end game with Kang? I don't know. So I'm literally just asking, is there any risk of Marvel fatigue at this point? Or is it just, has everyone accepted that Marvel will be a part of our lives forever?
I think it depends on the projects that they choose. It's going to be like, they are picking, for the most part, they're picking really well-known properties. Eternals is going to be one that, Eternals and Shang-Chi are going to be interesting data points to look at, because those are not well-known properties.
Right.
And we'll see how those perform. But they've done Kevin Feige has done a masterful job in picking out the best properties. I mean, they had picked out Inhumans for phase 3 way back in the day. And that was going to be one of their kind of pillar films. And they ended up making that an ABC series, and it was a train wreck, and they moved off of it. So I have faith that they'll pick the right project so that they can get to the end game, which I I believe is going to be Secret Wars, which will be an Endgame Infinity War style event. So we'll still have that like ultimate crescendo with a big bad. I just think it's going to be important come phase 5, because phase 4 is booked. Like we're set. There's no other things that they can add to this. Come to phase 5, they're going to have to pick the right properties, and they're already off to a good start with Blade and Fantastic Four. Does that mean that they do another Captain Marvel movie? Do they do an X-Men? Do they do their own Mutants film and make that something? They're going to have to do the right projects at the right time, especially now that Thor: Love and Thunder is going to be the last Thor film. Like that's going to be something that they're just going to have to deal with a new wave of people, a new wave of heroes, and they just have to pick the right one. So it's going to be a challenge, but I have faith that they can do it because Kevin Feige is a master. I hope to God that they have a plan. I'm assuming that they do, but I really do. My fingers are crossed that they have something. They have just kind of an outline of like, okay, this is where we need to go. So we'll see. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be kind of a mind fuck for a lot of people, because a lot of the shit's not going to make sense. Like it's going to be fucking all over the place. Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness kind of terrifies me because it's going to be such a clusterfuck of a movie, but I'm also excited to see it.
So one other thing I wanted to touch on and one of your thoughts on was, were you surprised that there's going to be a season 2 of this show?
A little. I was under the assumption that this was going to be essentially a 6-hour movie and a one season project. Going in, that was kind of the talk. I don't know when a second season will be done. I would assume it'd be probably 2023 at the earliest. I don't know. There's a lot to be answered. I'm excited for it, but I don't know. Like it was shocking to see that it got picked up for a second season. Of all the ones that got a second season, I thought this one made the most sense. Obviously, WandaVision doesn't make sense at all because her story is going to be continuing in Doctor Strange, and Captain America. They're getting their own film. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I mean, there's just so many possibilities. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, like even like if you look at the team ups, like we'll probably have a team up with Fantastic Four kind of leading the way, but then we can potentially do a Young Avengers movie because there's a lot of like there's that coming along, like, and then we could potentially do a Thunderbolts movie with Yelena and US Agent Contessa. Like all these things are kind of just fucking up in the air, and it's crazy. It's a lot to think about. The future of the MCU. I think they changed the MCU's name, by the way. I think it becomes like the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, MCM.
Oh, okay. There we go. I like where your head's
We'll see. Just crazy stuff. Now we got to wait for What If, which originally was going to be like a anthology series that really didn't have any tie into the MCU. It was just kind of like a fun project. But I think now that the multiverse is out, I think actually What If is going to be like the kickstart to see all these different realities. So
we'll see. And we'll get to see people's reactions to it. This is maybe them testing it out in cartoon form.
Dude, What If is going to slap so hard.
It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Early birthday gift for me. I'm excited.
All right, everybody. Make sure that you drop a thought. Let us know what you thought of the last episode of Loki. And we'll be back next week to go over. We'll do a ranking of the Disney Plus series. So we'll be back next week and talk to you all later.
Peace.
Vover.